All right. Okay.
The hell was that?
I don't know. I was brain turned off for a second. Welcome back to the Biker Protocol channel here on YouTube. My name is.
Yes.
What do you mean?
No, I think let's start.
Did I mess that up?
It's all right. Just laughing
I
now.
always like that. You can start with a laugh. You know?
It's all right. It's good.
Okay. Welcome to the Biker Protocol channel here on YouTube. Of course, I'm Hollywood Black Patch MC here in Las Vegas.
And I'm Picasso at the Eagle Riders MC, also here in Vegas. So yeah.
Today we're going to talk about the importance of bylaws. Let me just check my notes. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, as we're talking about today.
Because it is important to have them. I mean, I think that's kind of the one of the staples of a motorcycle club.
Yeah.
Is you need to have bylaws. What's the reasoning behind them? Well, not only do they help organize your club and give meaning to it, but there's also some legal aspects to it. Go ahead.
For sure. So, and as a starting point for making your club, when you start going around, and we're going to do a whole video on, things to know about starting an MC. We're going to do that as another video coming up. But one of the things you're going to have when you start talking to other clubs, 1% clubs specifically, when asking for permission to start your club, is they're going to ask you, do you have bylaws? And they're going to ask you how you've written them, how you've established them, and the structure of them. And then that's going to be a topic of early conversation with that.
Definitely.
For sure. But basically the bylaws are going to be the mission statement of your club, right? So it's going to be why you established the way you did and the rules that you set out for your members, for your officers. It's essentially a guideline to how you're going to set your club up. And it will be a growing thing. We generally do in our club, I don't know about you guys, but what we do is every year, we do on the anniversary of like first of the year, we rewind the clock a little bit, and usually about October when we start having our club meetings, we'll actually have get everybody to make sure if they don't already have a current copy of the bylaws and see if there's any revisions that we want to make, any things we want to add. And then we talk about it at the next meeting. And then usually around January, if there's any changes we need to make or the board wants to make any revisions, we put it to a vote. And so that's kind of how we do it with our bylaws. Because they are kind of changing over time,
Of course, yeah.
change and things, and yeah.
That kind of goes with. We actually had a comment about past protocol and traditions, and what about the modern protocol and traditions, which is a whole nother topic. But as things have progressed, you need to change your bylaws. I'm sure bylaws, even of big clubs, are a lot different than they were, when they first started.
Yeah.
And you could even and correct me. I don't know what your thoughts are on. You could even call it your constitution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Of your club. It's the kind of the founding rules, the mission statement, which is a good part, portion of it. What your club is about and what makes you stand out among the millions of other clubs.
Well, yeah, that's true. But it like kind of like we mentioned, it is sort of an evolving
Mhm.
document in the sense where, for example, like we added a PRO position, right?
Yeah.
Non-voting officer
And-
position. So that's something we want to add to our bylaws, so that way people know, that we have that position in there, that it becomes a thing, even though it's a non-voting officer.
And yeah, and if you guys don't know what that is, we did do a video on it. PRO is public relationships officer, and it's kind of because social media is a thing now,
It's a thing,
and
yeah.
you kind of have to have someone to manage that in a way, not necessarily voting, just someone that like a committee, a task,
mhm.
a person to take care of that task. So so the importance is, I would say, in order would be the mission statement. What is your club about? What are you doing? Why are you here? And then maybe a little bit of like a short history, because I think as you give it to your prospects, they're gonna learn everything about. Or some people don't give it to their prospects to their members or whatever.
Right.
Different clubs, different situations. You're gonna learn about what the club's about and what the process is, and then you get into the details, the rules of being an outlaw. As we get those comments a lot. Yes, there are rules of being an outlaw. Not saying we're outlaws, but you know what I mean.
Well, but it helps with it's even in a rule of outlaws, so to speak, there are laws, right? And
Yeah.
we're going to do a video on and defining what makes an outlaw an outlaw. But a lot of it is really just to establish a set of boundaries on how your club operates. And it's things like, because if you don't put things in writing, a lot of times things get lost in the shuffle, and then you have a lot of different opinions on how things get done. And you'll notice that over time, your bylaws become more and more important.
Mhm.
As your club grows, as you get new members, as officers change, things like this, it becomes more important. And so, one of the after your initial mission statement in your bylaws, usually starts to be definition of terms,
Yeah.
and it usually like in a lot of bylaws, it's like this in ours. You define what your officers are, so and what their roles are. So the president is the head of the club. Let's say here's the duties of the president,
Mhm.
and by the way, I think this also is not to deviate too much from this. This applies to RCs too. This is not
Yeah.
just for MCs.
RCs do
This
have
is for
bylaws,
RCs as
yeah.
well. Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. So, it's like defining what your duties of the officers are and what their roles are. And again, this comes back to where it especially becomes important where let's say you have an officer who's not doing their job, right? Let's say you have let's just pick on a topic, a road captain. Okay.
Mhm.
So the road captain isn't showing up for rides. The road captain isn't, maybe if you have ride waivers at events, they're responsible for that. Maybe they're not keeping members in check if they're not riding well. It could be any number of things, right? But let's say they're not doing their job. So, if you go to them and say, "Hey, listen, dude, you're not doing your job," it's like, "Well, nobody told me this," or "Well, hey,
Yeah.
it's in the bylaws, right?"
Yep.
We all defined it in there, right? So that's kind of an important thing is it helps keep people, you know, focused and in line. So
Yeah,
where they need to
it
be.
keeps as we were saying, it keeps the mission statement of your club
Yeah,
going forward and not straying too much. Obviously, over times, depending on your club,
yeah,
you can do amendments and revisions and
for
whatever,
sure.
and there's voting processes, and that's all I think decided by each individual club. Because as you grow, as we said, things change. You get to a point where maybe you went from your starting 5 to 8 members, and now you're at like 50. Now maybe there's some new amendments that need to be made
Yeah,
in terms of participation or how you ride or what attend,
hmm,
events and that so forth. So it's an ever growing thing. I think it's a living kind of being in its
yeah,
own thing. One thing I would say would be it's also a legal document, and this is at least the way we see it as. Um, we all know the stereotype of motorcycle clubs, and when you like any organization, even your job, you sign probably some sort of papers saying that you're going to do your job to the best you can, whatever. You're not going to do anything illegal. Uh, Bylaws can be that start to a legal boundary or wall, safe shield, or I don't know what you want to call it. You might be surprised that a lot of bylaws might actually say we don't do drugs or
hmm,
encourage drug use because regardless of each individual person, uh, the club itself does not endorse that because that's an illegal act. And by having something like that, or not maybe listing it out, can possibly, I would imagine, put you in some sort of trouble if something were to come up. So you can look at it that way. I think you have actually a story on that. We may have mentioned in previous videos uh, that when you join, you will not ride like an idiot.
hmm,
Like it kind of protects the club from you being an idiot and causing problems for the club.
right.
If you do something disastrous wearing the cut, they can't hopefully go straight to the club. And there's all sorts of legal mumbo jumbo that probably goes on top of that. But um, yeah, so I would say that's I think a good part of it, in my opinion. But going from that, it helps establish the whole club culture, your club culture, and gives you yourself a name.
Well, yeah, and one other thing is when writing your bylaws is, and I know there might be even some places that have, if you Google it, you'll find you'll find some information, but it's not the most trustworthy. Best bet is when you're starting
Yeah,
this is
funny.
talk to clubs in your area that can help you out and mentor you with this. A good 1% club might help you with this.
Yeah.
But one thing I will definitely recommend is, and we've gone through this battle with our own club a couple times where people want to make a revision to things, and one thing I will share with you is don't make the changes to your bylaws over time too specific.
Mhm.
So, for example, let's say your club charges dues, right? Most clubs do. So, let's say your club charges dues, right? And you're charging, I'm just making a number up, $25 a month to be in your club. Okay. So, you feel that, okay, we have a new clubhouse now, we have other things going on, we need to raise our dues. Let's raise it to $35. Okay. So, we've had times where people are like, well, we should put this in the bylaws that, it should be dues are $35.
Mhm.
Well, we don't want to do that because then what winds up happening is let's say 35 becomes 45.
Yep.
Okay. Now we have to go and revise the bylaws. And if you have in your bylaws that you're only doing this once a year, now you have to have special, it sounds simple, but it makes it more complicated. So,
Mhm.
if you're going to have dues in your club, say in their bylaws that we have dues. but I wouldn't put like specific numbers, specific dates, specific, don't get caught up into the weeds on this on that level because
Yeah.
then it winds up being more work than you realize down the road. So,
Yeah,
um,
I consider it a framework,
yeah,
it's the legal document.
yeah,
If you were to put a term like that to it,
yeah,
of how your club works, but there's always, unwritten rules and things that your traditions that your club goes by that aren't gonna be in the bylaws
yeah.
necessarily.
But I would put things in that may not, and again, your bylaws are your bylaws. They're not public. I think that's an important thing to note too.
Yeah.
This is not something for public information. This is something for your members to be able to look at. But you should put things that are again defined to a degree so that it doesn't come back and say, "Well, I didn't know." So for things like punishments, right? What happens if somebody doesn't pay their dues for 3 months? Let's say somebody doesn't come on, any number of rides in 2 months, right? What happens if their bike is down and they're not riding for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, right? You should have penalties or definitions of what
Recourses,
recourse
essentially,
is
yeah.
for if there's issues, right, for members. So, and just like there's responsibility for the officers, there's responsibility for the members. So,
Yeah,
what do they
yeah,
have to commit?
you need a lot of I mean, can't speak for every, club, but a lot of bylaws will actually, write out, the board, essentially, the officers
Right,
or the group that kind of oversees everything and kinda decides on where to go that doesn't require, like, say, a whole club vote or
right.
anything like that. If a member is acting up or not, like you say, paying dues on time or hasn't been seen riding his motorcycle
Right,
in a while, the board may get together and discuss like,
right.
what do we do about
Whose
this? And then
responsibility is right?
yeah, and then
Sergeant at arms, the treasurer, yeah.
yeah, and then bring it to the club for a vote or however it works in your bylaws. And then going back, you kind of mentioned it, they're not online. So I'm sure every motorcycle club that starts or anyone that's been wanting to become a member of a club has probably searched such and such bylaws online, and you're not going to find them. I mean,
Not from any good
yeah,
clubs.
and if you do, it's, probably from a video game or something, little fun story I have on that another time, but, not
We'll save that
perfect,
for
but
another
yeah.
time. I want to hear that one. Yeah.
So, yeah, just remember there's no yeah, no, I'm gonna leave that I'm gonna leave that one out. Anyways, I guess that kinda, like, does it, I mean, we kinda talked about it, goes over the prospecting, process,
Yeah.
the basics on, the term,
Yeah, you should definitely
uh
have your outlines for, the prospecting process, how long,
yeah.
do you have a minimum term for prospecting? Do you have a mentor? Like, these are things you should break out in your bylaws.
And
Yeah.
I would suggest on that note of prospecting
Awesome.
terms, you should definitely have a term. Don't
Yeah.
just say you're prospecting because when you set to a term, and I've seen this in our club specifically, uh, there let's say it's 6 months, whatever, I don't know. 6 months, you'll see a definite difference in the
Oh, yeah.
attitude when it hits 6 months
Oh,
of a
100%. Yeah.
prospect. If they're expecting on 6 months to get it and they
And they
don't,
don't. Yeah.
watch that because maybe they turn into not such a good prospective member because they think, "Oh, I'm working so hard. I'm just getting to that date. Just got to get to that date." And then, well, maybe it's not time. And then you see where if they do decline, or maybe they step it up another notch,
Mhm.
and that's kind of.
That happens too. Yeah.
But it setting those terms at least gives them something to work towards, and then it gives you guys as a member or as a club to kind of
Yeah. We
give
tell
that.
our prospects the minimum date is this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the date they get
Yeah,
permanent. So yeah, it
exactly.
doesn't work that way.
So that's
In
a
fact, it frequently isn't.
no.
Yeah.
I like I say, I suggest you don't, like, and I hope I'm not giving away a secret of any kind because, like I said, you will see a definite,
Hmm.
personality change in someone that hits their mark of 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and then they don't get a patch.
Right.
You will see whether they actually continue as wanting this or they just wanted that patch.
Well, and understand is that, and keep in mind, like you mentioned earlier, the bylaws are for the members to understand. It is not for the prospects. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so this is why it's cool to put a date in there as guidelines so the members know or the sponsor knows what this parameter is,
Mhm.
but it may not necessarily have to be told to the prospect. So,
True, yeah. And
so
like it's all it's your specific club's bylaws.
mhm.
Like you mentioned before, you'll be asked if you have them.
Yeah,
People aren't really going to ask to see them. They shouldn't
they
be.
just want to know if you have them. Yeah.
And it's how your club runs. So
Mhm.
if uh if you don't have that, how do you know how your club runs?
Right.
It's going to anarchy essentially in your
Pretty
club. You
much.
won't
Yeah.
have organization.
Again, it's mostly just a set of guidelines so they keep structure within your club, so everybody knows what's going on, what their place is, how the club operates. It's kind of like an operation instruction manual for your club.
Yeah.
So, that's
It-
always look at.
and hopefully I'm not stepping out of term, but yes, outlaw clubs have bylaws.
They do.
So yeah.
We're
Anyways,
gonna do a video on
yeah.
that for sure because it's a hot topic for sure. So that I think a lot of people misunderstand
Yeah.
how that works. But yeah.
Other than that, I mean, don't share your bylaws with us, but definitely comment if you have any
Interesting insights or
yeah.
interesting contributions that your club may have put in your bylaws that might be a little unique.
Yeah.
They'd be kind of curious to hear it. If you're willing to share it,
Yeah.
you may not be willing to, but yeah.
Don't forget to like,
Oh yeah,
subscribe.
keeps our channel going. So yeah, click the notification bell. That helps a lot too. That way you get our videos coming out. And by the way, I think we should use this as an opportunity. We're going to be starting a new video series in midweek. So we're going to be doing more videos now. So midweek, I think Wednesday we're going to launch on. And so what this is going to be is our way of doing little fun midweek stories that are not necessarily protocol related, but just kind of tales of things that we've done, things we've run into, other stuff that would happen on the road. We thought it'd be kind of a fun little way to do something midweek. So,
And there's kind of protocol in these stories,
oh, for sure.
But it's always fun sharing the crazy stories on the road because there's a lot of crazy stories.
You'll learn a lot as a club by having weird things happen on the road.
Yeah.
I can assure you.
Rebuilding an entire motorcycle engine at Sturgis, putting on cinder blocks, stuff like that.
Crazy stuff like that. So we're going to start sharing some of these stories because we have many of them.
And
yeah,
you guys are more than welcome to share.
we'd love to hear them
well.
because I know there's a lot out there. So thousands and thousands. That's what makes this whole experience so much fun. So yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
So cool. So thanks for watching the channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next video. Cool. Oh, we forgot to do our shot. Damn it.
You want to just cut it?
We'll do it. Yeah. Okay. By the way, almost forgot we got to do our shot today. Yeah. Before we forget, what I'll share with you what we're drinking afterwards. All right. Cheers. Skull.
Cool.
That
Not
is-
as bad as the previous ones.
It tastes like it drinks. It smells. It is New Amsterdam coconut.
Oh, okay. I can taste the coconut.
Yeah.
That wasn't too bad. New Amsterdam's not that bad. They actually,
I'm not a big fan of that. I like vodka. That's
yeah.
great. All right. Peace out, guys. See you on the next video.